We looked carefully at the human ambassador as he sat down. The man looked old. He looked experienced. A pale face with grey hair all over the underside of his face. The uniform, the atmosphere, the attitude. It spoke nothing of command or his status. His aura projected irritation and boredom more than anything else. He pulled up his seat and pressed a button, starting up our tactical overlay on the battlefield. I waited for him to read the data we had and looked out the window. Yagarin 4, an ocean planet. The only known planet to have the precious resource Taxanite in overt abundance. An ocean world. A world saturated in tiny archipelagos surrounded by miles of deep oceans. Of course, owing to the planet-wide storms that occur every hour, you can't see the strange green tint of the planet's oceanic surface. I could see flashes of lightning streaking across the clouds, bolts of scorching white light flashing from behind the blanket of thick, black clouds. A unique world. A world the galaxy has been fighting over for generations, all because of this one single resource, Taxanite. Humanity were newcomers to the galactic stage, and to even see a human outside of the bounds of the Terran Union was something truly unique. My hoofs nervously clacked against the ground, as the Predator's eyes carefully read through the data. Strange. Pardon? I replied, moving from the window. So let me get this straight. You lot have been fighting over control of this world for how long now? He asked, one of the furry tufts above his eyes raised. 25 generations. Approximately 2,000 of your Earth years, if my math is right, I replied in kind, looking nervously at Hamlin, my compatriot sitting nearby. He let out a noise that sounded like steam coming from a kettle. I didn't know they could do that. Oh my. That's a long-ass time. What exactly are you fighting over? Taxanite. It is a very potent energy source we use to power cities and starships. 10, pounds, I think, is the measurement you use. Can supply enough energy for a city of 10 million for up to 50 years, Hamlin said matter-of-factly. The human let out that sound again. The human word for it was a whistle. Impressive. So, why this planet then? Yagarin 4 is a planet that is essentially its own niche of celestial evolution. The planet's geological and tectonic activity give it just the right conditions and mineral composition to create this mineral in ridiculous abundance. Other planets have it, of course, but in most cases it's not worth the energy to acquire, but we do it anyway, I said, sitting in my own chair. Okay. So, the entire galaxy uses this stuff? He asked again, as his posture straightened out. Yes, there is enough of it in the universe generally that we can make enough of it to build fleets, make cities, power industries. Every planet in the universe has at least a small amount of it. This planet is simply a natural superproducer, so to speak. So, here we are, Hamlin replied, handing the human a sealed box with a tiny amount of it. Ah, a Dune situation, huh? I'm not going to make the assumption that alternatives have been tried and have not worked. He sat back in his seat and crossed his arms. Of course, everything. We were even beginning to build I believe the human term is a Dyson sphere, for energy harvesting. Then various wars over Taxanite left us to abandon the project. That was long ago, though. We went through wind farms, fossil fuels, coal hell, even tried a steam-powered starship at one point. Ancestors, that was a disaster. However, as it turns out, Taxanite is still the best option, I said, with a hint of sorrow. Best power source in the galaxy, bar none. Best input-to-output ratio in the right reactors. Can power any city with one reactor. A colony can start on any planet with one of these reactors and not run out of energy for 5 generations. Eventually finding their own way to sustain their growth with solar power or careful management. But eventually it runs out, and we have to get more fuel, Hamlin said, showing various readouts on the console. Ah, have you tried nuclear? He asked, scratching his chin. Yes. Nowhere near as efficient. Abundant, but after a time it just wasn't worth it. Meltdowns, fusion explosions. After a time we just gave up, stating it was not worth the risk or investment. It was decent, of course, a very good source of power, but otherwise more useful as weapons against hive swarms. Of course, we haven't had a hive war in centuries, so that tech has fallen out of favour, I said with a sigh. I'm assuming everyone has tried a peaceful solution multiple times by now, he asked. Yes, repeatedly. Due to the way the planet works, we can't define territory lines very well since the tax wells move according to tectonic activity. Some areas can be barren of taxanite for months on end, while others can overflow with it. This causes territorial disputes. After a lot of bloodshed, we came up with a solution, I replied. Let me guess. You've come up with a sort of tournament thing where every planetary year you guys form up, duke it out, the winner gets the spoils while the losers have to grab the scraps on the outskirts, he said plainly, making both of us blink in surprise. Well guessed. That is indeed what we do. The territories are respected, of course, at least for the year. Then it starts up again, I replied. Well, you obviously ain't stupid enough to use the resource you are fighting for to power your gear, so I'm guessing it's, fossil fuel? Diesel, maybe? It's an ocean planet. I'm going to assume turbine screw-driven propulsion on boats. He raised that tuft of fur again as we spoke. Yes, actually. The planet's surface is too tempestuous, so we usually use non-energy-based projectile weaponry. Ion storms, electrical storms, nothing really electronic that's too sophisticated can actually tolerate operating for long, and it's usually very expensive to EMP shield a ship, so we usually go with cannons or low-power railguns, with localized battery sources, of course, Hamlin explained. How many other factions have you got here? He asked calmly. House Dress of the Vakasan, House Orimph of the Serenai, the K-Suni Syndicate of the Eridani, the Triumvirate of the Tusukani, the Taurian Hierarchy, which is us, and the Olivarchis Orion Nest. Counting yourselves, hopefully on our side, that's 7. We have won the last 2 tournaments. We do, however, have serious reservations on the next. That's why you are here, I said. I see. Well, this is interesting. How long until we got the next tournament? He asked, standing up to lean over the counter. 2 months, Hamlin said. Well, I'm going to need a sample of this Taxanite stuff. See what it is. I will talk to the brass and see what we need to do. Thank you for your time, gentlemen, he said, and gave us a bow and walked out to his shuttle, taking the small sample with him. Do you think this will work? I asked Hamlin. No, but do we have a choice? Reserves are dangerously low, he said, reminding me of that fact by showing me his meticulously made charts. Please don't. I knew the council was making a mistake. 1 planet a year. 1. What the hell were they thinking when they commanded 10 new colonies? Hamlin and I both sat quiet for a bit as we continued to check readouts. It had been a month since the human visited us at the station. A month of essentially silence. I sat quietly behind my desk, my despair essentially overcoming me. To such an extent, I couldn't hear the station master calling me. My Lord Varus? He lolly-bellowed. Oh, damn it. Yes, Sulcan, I replied, snapping out of my stupor. The human ambassador is here to see you. Send him in. I hope it's good news, I sighed, and waited for my door to open. The human ambassador seemed cheery as he walked in the door. He had with him one of our master engineers, also with a huge grin on his face. Master Matthias, good news, I hope? Oh, the best news we could have hoped for, Lord Varus. The absolute best. He smiled happily at me as the human ambassador presented me with a document. I read it in front of them. You cannot be serious. Is this for real? As real as it gets. Yes, it is damn serious. Witnessed it with my own 2 eyes, Matthias said, still with that smirk. So here's how it is. The unnatural beings of unholy insanity, more commonly known as the human engineer, have come up with a few interesting ideas about this Taxanite stuff. Quite an interesting material as it turns out, but in terms of energy production it ranks about 5th. It's definitely fascinating, but there is better, and far cheaper. So, we've decided to come up with a deal for you," the human ambassador said as he handed me a document. It had the Emperor's signature on it already. That was interesting. "If you lot all immediately cease all mining operations and all hostilities, we will supply you with first-generation tech of ours. And if you give us the planet and hand over all operations to the Terran Republic, we will send out engineering teams to replace all active Taxanite reactors immediately. This includes complete removal and replacement of all reactors, plus 4 engineering courses to all power plant operators so they can know how to use and improve them, free of charge." I failed to respond as I passed out in my chair. True to their word, Taxanite was rendered worthless within the space of a few months, as humanity's relentless march for our engineering course progressed. It wasn't a smooth transition, of course, but it was one that benefited all in the long run. In the end, humanity asked if we would form a sort of galactic council, or some kind of governing body to better handle stuff like this in future. We, of course, agreed, but only if humanity started as the leadership.